I was talking to a marketing consultant today, and he discovered me through a podcast. So while he knew about the work I did, we started the conversation by with him asking me to repeat for him what it is that I did. And so I kind of explained we what we do. And at the end of that process, he said, Rishi, what you're saying is really interesting, but it's very limited. You are missing out on a much bigger picture and all the different ways in which one can explore marketing. For example, if you were to also help your clients with user research, you would get much deeper insights into how their shoppers are behaving. And this is a really good point. There are so many things one can do with marketing. There are so many ways in which you can dramatically improve the effectiveness of your overall marketing. There is one missing piece here, though, which is the cost implications, right? In order to do all of these things, that takes a lot more time. It's a lot more expensive. You need a lot more knowledge from the client. So, which means it's more complicated, more risky for the client to actually do a project like that. And so, what I want to talk about is recognize that focusing on just a few things is limiting because it means there are many other things that we're choosing not to focus on, which means we are technically blind to those things. What you lose in terms of breadth, you actually gain in terms of depth. And that is very useful, whether you are running a marketing program or you're designing a marketing program. We have to have the courage to just zero in on a few things and trust that those are the things that matter. Now, I can give you my perspective, and the things that you choose to focus on would be different. But having gone through this process, having developed scar tissue going through this process hundreds and hundreds of times, I can tell you the key things that I focus on. So the first thing I focus on is the buyer psychology, because ultimately we are trying to influence and persuade the shopper, which means I have to understand the psychology that they are kind of using so that I can connect with them. Now, the psychology is a very broad subject, so we're not talking about all aspects of psychology. We are focused on the psychology that applies to first time buyers, which means now, as a trade off, we are not focusing on increasing average order value. We are not focusing on getting existing customers to introduce their friends. We are not focusing on getting people that bought from us a year ago to buy from us again, because those are all different marketing universes and we don't have the energy to actually dominate all of them. So we're strategically focusing on first time buyers. And obviously, it's going to change from business to business, but for the clients that I work with, and I'm pretty confident this is true for you as well, most of your visitors are first time buyers or at least potential first time buyers. So it makes sense to focus on this group. This is the biggest group. So we talked about buyer psychology, we talked about first time buyers. The next thing that we do is we focus on the conversion copywriting. So we believe that there are many ways in which you can influence the psychology of the buyer. You can do it through video content, you can do it through design, you can do it through an email sequence. So we focus on copywriting. And that basically, in simple terms, is any word that's on the page. And that could also include emails, but we focus on the words. And we then kind of call that conversion copywriting. And then within that, so again, we're making a trade-off, and we're going to make one more trade-off, which is that there are two types of people that are coming to your website. There are skimmers and there are diggers. The diggers are uber skeptical shoppers. They need all the information. And those are the people that we focus on, which means to some extent, not to a great extent, we are ignoring the skimmers a little bit and we're really focusing on the diggers. And the reason for this is because diggers have a chronically low conversion rate. Skimmers, because they're easy to satisfy, have a relatively high conversion rate. Diggers are much, much harder to please. So we want to really go after them because that's where the opportunity is. And so we focus on this long form sales pitch. And that is the summary of our process. Now, this approach, while it is limiting in many ways, it is also extremely surgical. And what I can tell you is as you kind of do the mental math to think about these different user groups, think about first time buyers, think about skimmers and diggers, think about, copy versus other tools, you'll realize that these three or four things collectively pack a pretty significant punch. And so I hope that this kind of clarification makes sense. And in the comment section, you can actually see an article that we've written that where we kind of walk through all of them. And of course, if you write a comment, I can answer your questions as well on, any specific questions about like first time buyers, or can you tell me more about skimmers, or can you talk to me more about long form sales pitch? All of that are things that we really kind of focus on. So I hope this makes sense.